And on Sunday night, we have great communal dinners. 2 weeks ago, we had somebody bring in a 10-pound ham. And it was really fantastic. It was the first time, because I said something about meat dishes the week before, like we never have meat. And another guy brought a whole chicken, and we really had a feast. It was really great. We had all this.
Okay.
You were
on Wednesday night, we have our food nanny, which we always have. And if any of you people,
let's play it again.
Not so much? Okay.
Sure, these three, particularly the one in the middle there doesn't go over his 5 minutes. We'll see what happens. But welcome. This is, we are sharing whatever that says over there. This is a very long title, but we are sharing the story of how the Dave Siglin tapes, the ARC tapes, this Siglin Music Preservation Fund legacy project came to be, and we are all board members, but I'm gonna introduce this lovely woman a little bit later in the night. Her name is Susan Martinez. She's been related to the FAI for a long, long time, but also goes way, way back with the Siglins and the ARC, and her story is really fun. This dude in the middle is named Dave Siglin. He's the reason these tapes exist. He's the reason the ARC exists, as far as I'm concerned. And the guy in the end is the powerhouse at the University of Michigan, who has been involved with this project from the beginning, trying to bring it to life, and his name is Paul Conway, right? So this is this is a crazy important collection of live folk recordings from the ARC in Ann Arbor. Is there anyone in this room who doesn't know what or where about the ARC? Okay.
Let's see.
And of
on
course
Wednesday
you
night,
are
we have
all-
our food nanny, which we all.
Yeah.
That was Linda saying, stop talking,
She still
Annie.
wants to talk.
I know. We're going to play that every time somebody talks too much. Okay, well, can tell it's because of the youngins, but you'll learn a lot about this venerable venue that still exists today. We're going to talk about the challenges of making these recordings accessible and remind you that we have a booth in the exhibit hall where you can talk to any of these three lovely humans about the project going on. So enjoy this first hour. I am going to introduce you first the man behind the tapes, Dave Siglin.
So I was handed 4 talking points so that I would keep it to 5 minutes. And so I was born in 1942. No. The first thing is, why did I make the tape recordings? Well, the ARC was founded in 1965. Linda and I came to the ARC in fall of 1968. I was teaching guitar at Herb David Guitar Studios, working the counter, and this guy came in and said he and his wife were leaving, and they were looking for a new manager. And by the way, the first manager of the ARC in 1965 hated folk music, but SDS started at the ARC. Tom Hayden and SDS had their meetings at the ARC in 1965. Really cool. Anyway, so we came, and they interviewed me and their board, and it's a nonprofit organization. And then they asked if they could interview Linda, and they interviewed her, and they hired me. And then I found out later they hired me because they liked Linda. And so we figured we'd stay a year. I had been a totally failed performer out in California in 1963 because nobody told me you needed talent. And so I had an empathy for performers, and I think that was a good thing. And Linda's whole background was in theater, and so she knew what was entertaining, and that was a good thing. And I was in theater in college, and we decided we would stay there for a year, and then we would go off into theater and have a life. And I started taping because I just wanted some memories, because I thought this would be fun. And it was sponsored by 4 churches, which it was not a religious thing. They just founded this thing so students could come to it and listen to music and talk and do whatever they wanted. And so I figured I would leave, and then a group in one of the churches wanted to close us down, And like in any big organization, there's a small group that wants to do one thing and another group that doesn't want to do it, and the bulk of the people don't even know about it, and they don't care. And so that's what happened there. And we decided we would stay until the Ark was safe. And we stayed for 40 years. And, so eventually I realized that I wasn't just taping for myself. I mean, the music was incredible. And I can name names: Bob White, Michael Cooney, Pam Osman. These are names you've probably never even heard of them. But they were incredible musicians. Pam Osman, she's my favorite female singer, period. I mean, she was just unbelievable. And she doesn't sing anymore. But anyway, so when I taped, I always asked the artist permission if I could tape, mind if I tape? Yeah, sure, fine. I mean, we're talking the late 60s and the 70s, and nobody really cared. So they said, sure, go ahead. And I made tapes, and I wasn't concerned with making a performance tape, something that people could listen to. I was concerned with making a record of the event. And the tape recorder was upstairs, and I'm downstairs. I introduced the act, and eventually we figured out Linda introduced the act because she was more presentable than I was, and then I could start the tape on time. Because when I started, I had to run upstairs and hit the tape recorder, and then come back down and work the soundboard, which was that big. And so that went on, and the tapes, I taped eventually 1,460 shows, which is a lot of tape. And what I'm hoping for with these tapes eventually, I mean, when the Ark moved, it moved twice. And the last time it moved, we were living in a house, and all the tapes were in the basement. The basement flooded, and the tapes were underwater, and the university said, we'll restore them, we'll try them out, etc., etc. But if we can't do them all, which ones should we do? And I said, if you recognize the name of the performer, set that aside. Do all the ones whose names you don't recognize. I mean, we had Jeff Guthrie, Woody Guthrie's uncle. He was a fiddler from Pampa, Texas. He was deputy sheriff in Pampa, Texas. He knew Pretty Boy Floyd and all these people. And he was not a great fiddler. He played for dances in Pampa, but his stories were incredible. Yeah. And it's very important to save this stuff. And so they restored all the tapes and said we could play them once, and then the drop-off would be astonishing. You would never be able to get a good second play. So when I retired in 2008, I donated them to the Bentley Library, and on the condition that, and they agreed to this. Unfortunately, they agreed to it verbally rather than, it was a handshake agreement. And the guy who was running the Bentley then retired, and the guy who took over was just a cork. He just didn't want to do it. They were going to have them digitized, they were going to contact the performers, and what could go online was going to be put online. And so this just was not happening. So we formed a foundation, and we raised over $100,000 eventually, and we had them all digitized to the tune of about $58,000. And so the Bentley now, and that guy retired and somebody else took over, so we're working again with the university. And well, it's been a long slog. I donated them in 2008, and we raised the money, 2 years ago? And they were just digitized 2 years ago, and then I had to drop off my board because you can't pay a board member to do work, and I had to identify all the tapes because one of the problems was when the university restored them, they sometimes put the reel in the wrong box. Oh. So they were under the wrong names, and
there were hundreds of reels.
Yeah, well, a lot of reels, and I took a reel, 60-minute reel, and I recorded all 4 tracks separately. So I had 4 hours of music. And there were a lot of tapes. And then in about 1977 or 78, we started using cassettes that made it easier. But my hope is they've been digitized now. We are contacting performers, asking them for their permission. And everybody so far has said yes. I don't expect everybody to say yes, and I don't care if everybody says yes. They'll be preserved, and what can go online will go online. And hopefully, years from now, somebody will hear Pam Osserman sing and go, she was incredible. She's a great banjo player, great singer, and that's my hope, that these performances and these people who performed, who many of you don't even know who they were as good as the famous pop folk singers of the day, and in many cases better. I mean, really, it was fantastic time, great music.
Nice. I have a question. Is the reason you asked me to be on the board so you didn't have to pay me anymore? I'm just kidding. Never mind. Never mind. Dave Siglin. We'll hear more from him. Paul, would you like to pick up the
Good, thank you.
thread?
This slide here is just a very small representative example of the tapes. I've got some data that I'm going to show you in the next couple slides, but besides the almost 1,400 tapes that Dave donated to the University of Michigan, he also donated several boxes of photographs that he had accumulated, either taken live at the ARC or promotion photographs that go around with the artists. Plus a complete run of all the monthly programs. Initially there were postcards, that's a picture of one right there, sent out, hand-drawn, handwritten, and then reproduced on colored paper, and then eventually monthly flyers, and also the kinds of flyers that you tack up to a telephone pole to announce the event. All of that material is also at the Bethany. We've digitized everything, and we intend to use the photographs together with and the flyers together with the sound recordings to create a kind of a more memorable experience. I thought it wouldn't be fair if I didn't play something right away. So we've got John Prine, we've got Betty, we've got high-level ranters from Northern England. This show was their first show playing together 2 weeks after they were married. They took a Greyhound bus up from North Georgia, survived that as a newlywed, stayed at the Ark, stayed upstairs where in the second floor. Elizabeth Cotten, 2 or 3 performances, stunning work. A show of hands, which, if I could play one, which one do you want to hear first?
Elizabeth Cotten.
Okay.
I guess y'all can see I play my guitar upside down. The strings haven't been changed. I changed them, but I couldn't play it. So I had to put them back this way. And this is the way I learned how to play. But first, I learned how to play on a banjo. My brother owned a banjo. When he come home at night, he used to play it. But when he was going to work, I'd get his banjo and turn the screws. I didn't know whether it was going up or down. And I'd pop one. Then I'd put it back where I found it. Then
how about
John Prine?
Well, let's see. And he ain't no railroad tunnels at the state of Kansas.
shows from Norman and Nancy Blake, or Norman alone, and he's and Nancy have given us permission to release all of them except one. I'm not going to tell you which one or why, but he went through the process of looking at what he had and approved everything. So the entire show. Okay, so we have to do John Prine. 2 years after the.
I'm an old woman named after my mother. My old man's another child's grown old. If my dreams were lightning and thunder were desire, this house would all burn down a long time ago. Make me an angel that flies from the garden.
The quality is
Make
good.
me a poster
Of the
of the
soundboard.
rodeo.
It's better when the artist paid attention
Just
to
give me
the
one
microphone.
thing that I can hold
Sometimes
on
they didn't. Sometimes they walked into
to.
the audience,
Believe in this living is a hard way
sing-alongs.
to go.
Sometimes. All right.
I'm an old woman named after my.
Yeah. Come on, Scott.
I'm an old woman named after my mama.
Just y'all can see I play.
My old man's another.
Whoa. Okay. So how many tapes are there? Dave mentioned he and I have a different count, but it's more or less thousands. We have
1,460 shows.
and my count is 1610, but give or take the number of shows, number of tapes. It doesn't really matter. We've got a lot, and they're all digital, and they've all been cataloged. This gives you a sense of the distribution over the decades. Dave started taping in very late 1968, early 69, so there's not a whole lot from the 60s. The core is the 70s and 80s, in which many, not all, shows were taped and then started dropping off. And when they moved to ARC 3, which is more of a commercial, it's non-profit, but it's a listening room and a music venue.
Yeah.
There was less need to tape those. Plus, now the ARC is taping everything. They tape everything and have formal agreements with the artists. Or they don't tape everything, but when they can get an agreement with an artist, they will tape it. So that the process of recording the experience at the ARC continues today. By my estimate, there are only 3 other large, well-known, but inaccessible collections of folk music to rival the Siglin music collection. There's the Heritage in San Diego gave all of its material to UCLA. It's locked up with one little catalog record, no access to it at all unless you go to the library at UCLA, sit down with your headphones and listen to it. The Smithsonian Folkways, Folk Music, and the Library of Congress's folk music collections are also huge, but they're not accessible unless you fly to Washington, D.C., drive to Washington, D.C., walk in, register, put your headphones on, listen in real time. There's no streaming, no cataloging, and no access. Cafe Lena tried to do what we did, what we are doing now, but and they put out a few DVDs and a coffee table book, and then realized that the mountain decline was too high. So they gave all their material to the Library of Congress, which proceeded to lock it up in a nice little climate-controlled vault. None of the Cafe Lena stuff is available unless you go to the Library of Congress to listen to it. Our big goal is to break that barrier by using digital technologies and a permissions process to get more and more of this material out as much as possible.
Philadelphia Folk Festival has their stuff going back to the 70s.
Is it available?
Dependently for educational purposes. They're working on it, but it's all digitized, it's all archived, etc. Some of it came from me, so yeah.
And it's that next step is what the
Yeah.
next few slides are about.
Yeah.
It's what do you do when you have everything digital and everything cataloged?
Yeah.
And you've got a lawyer whispering in your ear saying, no, you can't do that because it's all copyrighted.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what we're trying to do. The problem is, very quickly, is that the life expectancy of analog media is far shorter than the copyright term. So you have to digitize material for at least preservation purposes. And if you digitize it, you can't justify the cost of digitization unless you're committed to making the material available. So you can't just digitize. And there's a lot of that work going on, but then the digits are locked up at the Library of Congress or UCLA or whatever. And weaponized is the right wing is using weaponized to describe everything the left wing is doing. So I'm appropriating that term to say that the copyright community is weaponizing the copyright for the benefit of commercialized music sales and distribution. So, yeah.
I don't understand the third point,
Yeah.
saying it doesn't exist unless it's online.
If you,
And that's probably my lack of knowledge of the technology, but if I have something digitized and somebody emails me and says, can I borrow it or can I have it,
Mhm.
can't I send it to
yes,
them
but how do
even
they
if
know
it's
you
not
have it?
online?
How do they know you have it? But it doesn't exist in the wider world because everybody has digital stuff on their phones, on their computers. Every folk music festivals, I just visited Jazz and Heritage Festival, they have thousands and thousands of hours of wonderful tape, almost none of it is online. And so I say it doesn't exist in the wider world unless you know it exists, and it doesn't exist unless it's out there for people to pick
So
up. And then if you're
really-
24, if you're 35 years or younger, if it's analog, it doesn't, and has become digital, it's like, what? So I'm using that sort of rhetorically to say you have to, if you have the digital material and it's valuable, you have to get it out there.
So you're
No.
talking about availability.
Yes, yes, I am. But I was being a little bit more provocative because the radical piece here is that if you're sitting on piles of digital material, you're not doing anybody any favors by rescuing it in digital form. You must make the commitment, and the weaponized copyright is the most significant barrier. It's not the cost, it's not server space, it's not cloud services, it's not streaming technologies, it's not access to your phone, it's none of those things. It's not technology, it is the lock and key behind so much of this material. So that's sort of the politics of this whole project. So,
I think that if there's a chance for the human race to survive
this is Pete
some
Siegel.
of the side effects of the technology that you all here are so busy developing, it will be because us human beings work out some new old ways to relate to each other besides the relatively strict and I think sometimes inhuman ways that modern world makes us relate to each other. And my main way I try is to help find some songs that people like to sing together. Here's one I learned from Woody Guthrie about 40 years ago.
Okay, and just as a little Easter egg I put in here, Marjorie Guthrie, a tribute to Woody Guthrie in 1972.
I like to remind all of us that Woody did have visions of the future, even when he was 34 and younger. And I have to also remind you, since I am Äôll's mother, that we don't believe in the star system. I always tease about it when people say to me in interviews, what do you think of your famous son? I say, famous son? We don't have stars in our family. When Äôll's home, he has to put the garbage out too.
And then he wrote a song about it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. All right, so the salute of, yeah.
Just a comment, I was actually at that Pete Seeger concert in Ann Arbor.
Oh, good, in 1981? Oh, good.
Yeah, I was a student from 79 to 86, maybe.
Oh, good for you.
And then
That
again, 86.
actually is the first time we were able to fundraise. The woman who founded the Ark took a friend of hers to the concert, and he was a Republican fundraiser. He had raised $1 million for Ronald Reagan. And she took him to see Pete Seeger, and he sat there, and at the end of the show he said, you know, if he can do it for the Ark, so can I. And he started raising money. Unfortunately, he tried to run it through the Heritage Foundation. When the president of our board found out about it, they just freaked out and stopped him.
Well, and with Reagan being elected, that was a funny time. I was on the Michigan Student Assembly, the student government, and politically it was very strange. It had been very liberal up until Reagan got elected, and then this whole stream of kind of too well-dressed students kind of took over.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Some of the stuff on these tapes, I had to, the reason I dropped off the board, I had to identify the show and the performer and the date of the show, and I had to do all 1,460 shows, and now I'm making set lists for them all. And I have to listen to these shows, and one of the things that cropped up, these were the 70s. Sarah Gray, who was just like really sweet, very nice, and does traditional music, was playing the arf, and Bob White was there, and we were all, it was after a show, and it was like 4 a.m. in the morning, and we were drunk, and we called President Nixon. And she told about this in the show, unfortunately, talked about it, and it's on one of those tapes, and I'm not going to say any more about it, but if you want to hear it,
Yeah.
you'll have to make that tape available.
So this is the summary slide, and then I've got 3 slides, more, one for each of these. Our solution is to first treat digital access, this kind of ethical or moral obligation we have to make this digital material available, and this is librarians and archivists and any other keepers of this material. I'm making the case that making this material available is just a simple digital extension of the folk process itself. Because folk music is all about transmittal of knowledge and music and its subtle transformations over time. Front porch music being handed on. So why not have librarians and archivists do the same thing, digitize and claim the right of the folk process instead of the claim of library administration. So I'm a librarian by training. So the other piece of it is fundamental respect for the right of the performer to control their own legacy. So it's not the legal side of it, it's the ethical, moral side that performers have to manage the evidence of their performing life, some of which was unknown. The Grateful Dead's bootlegging, people at concerts now holding phones up and making a recording of the phone. Eventually, it's the performers that should be able to at least have first right of refusal for this material. So we're working it that way. And then final is to take reasonable risks, not be automatically afraid because a lawyer comes and knocks on the door and says, you can't do that. And they say, well, wait a minute, there might be some solutions. So there's
such as this, I hope that for the sake of nostalgia.
Oh, I have to play. This is Roger Rennie.
You say you're in training to be an academic.
Yes.
Paul, can you turn up the output from your computer so we can hear it better?
No, I wondered if it was
I think that's as loud as it can be, I'm afraid.
That's all the way up.
Oh, that's it? That's the volume?
Such as this, I hope that for the sake of nostalgia.
This is Roger Rennie.
Well, I see what you mean. You say you're in training to be an academic. What do you mean by that?
Second from the left.
With my jug and spoon on one fine morning in the month of June. Now a small bird sang on the nine-day bush, and the song he sang was the jug of punch. Dora-lura-loo, dora-lura-loo.
These are the Cayleys, the English-Irish Canadian exchange, 4, 5, 6 people, swapping songs.
And the song
we had many
was the
Cayleys.
jug of what more diversion can man desire?
And then Michael Cooney, we have 106 of his shows, full shows, so anywhere from an hour to 4 hours at a time. I wanted to play, he did a workshop for the public in 2003, 3 days in a row and then a concert. And this is a tiny little excerpt where he defines what folk music is.
And the story ended, I was reading, story ended with the devil waiting outside of his cell, been waiting there for 41 years, and he had 31 more to go, waiting for Staggerly to die.
Oh, no, that's the wrong one. I get that later. And then Malvina Reynolds, many people covered her songs, and Malvina appeared multiple times, and her voice is very low, so. This song's been covered all over the place. Oops. Okay. So the folk project, there's 3 more slides, and then we'll turn it over for more dialogue. This is Pam Ostergren passing on the folk process, playing banjo. She looks like she's 16 years old, but she was 23, maybe, when she appeared here.
Ah, cuckoo, she's a pretty girl, and she warbles and she flies, but she never hollers cuckoo till 4th day of July.
David Bromberg appeared at the Ark in 2018. I happened to be in the front row.
Americana. The word didn't exist, so we were folk music or rock and roll or classical or... Well, folk music, now, you're going to think I'm trying to be funny, but it's really true. Folk music is music that has been played or is being played in a circumstance where there's no chance of money changing wheels. Think about it. Am I right? Americana is stuff that sounds like that, but it's written for profit.
Okay, so we started this process about 8 years ago by reaching out to some of the more prominent musicians or ones with the most frequent recordings we had, just to test the process that, if asked, artists would be willing to give permission to allow us to stream out their recordings. And one of the first people we got to was Norman and Nancy Blake. This is a verbatim transcript from a telephone interview that we did with them. So you can read it, but if you can, I'll read it to you. I just say if they want to hear what my guitar playing sounded like at the highest point in time before a live audience, that was it. I don't know of any of a recording that I made that's any more spectacular. If they want to hear me at that time, let them hear what I did with my wife. And so we have 8 of these full performances, all spectacularly done. The 1,400 performances that Dave counts and the 1,600 that I count run the gamut of types of sources of the music itself. And what our lawyer said, don't pick a fight. His first piece of advice to us is says, don't pick any fights. So don't go after performers where you're going to get a cease and desist letter, or where they're covering Bob Dylan tunes, or things where there's other people scraping this stuff off the web. Go after ones where you have more of the ability for the performer to give the permission. And the highlighted colors here are those areas where we're going after, which is traditionalists who are working with public domain music or orphaned works, and like Pam Ostergren is passing on the folk process. Either solo performances like Pam did, or a group, Grady Tuck and Pam Ostergren and Bob White did a stunning performance together. But they were all transmitting their own music, other people's music. And then singer-songwriters. If you were touring, you did a show promoting your record and mixing in some other things that people hadn't heard yet, the performer has the ability, we believe, to say that performance is of me, it's mine, you can let it go if you want to. And one other piece is you've been to folk clubs, and one of the big deals with folk clubs, one of the amazing things is songs and talk, more talk, songs, song, talk, and more talk. And of the legal advice we've gotten is the talk belongs to the performer, period. So we have decided not to break up these hour-long digital files into songs and talk and songs and talk, because we set ourselves up for having to deal with individual songs instead of the performer's work, which is the place we're at. Yes?
Yeah, just a quick question. How do you find everybody? Because, a lot of people...
Yeah, everybody has a web page.
Oh, really?
No, I bring this into my classroom and at the University of Michigan, and students do the finding piece as as part of their projects. And we have found, out of the 80 artists, I'll show you in a slide in a minute, out of our 80 top priorities, there's only about 6 that we can't find. That Wikipedia, Discogs, AllMusic, sometimes there's nutshell biographies, obituaries, survived by blah, 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 who now lives in Falmouth, Massachusetts, boom. So what we're pursuing is either living artists or people who have passed away, maybe within the last decade or so, where we can find traces of their life. And it turns out not to be that hard to at least know where they are. The big challenge, which one of the reasons people, and we get the card, make the phone call. So, but everybody, it's amazing how much information there is about even what we would call obscure folk artists on the web. You can Google anybody and almost get them. So and when we're skipping, the picking the fight is people that tend to come in and cover other people's work. And it's still a folk process, but it's not their own work. I got two.
What do you do with the artists that are mostly living with stuff but can do it cover?
Well, this is where our wonderful copyright lawyer at the University of Michigan is. There's two things. One is the predominance. Don't be spooked by one song here or one song there. That let the performance itself and the permission from the performer be the predominant thing that we're doing. And then Michigan pioneered with the Google Books project and HathiTrust large-scale digitization. They pioneered what's called a liberal takedown policy. And that's basically, remember when you were 14 and you wanted to go out and do something, and it's easier to apologize to your parents than ask for permission. A liberal takedown policy is exactly that. You have a little button, you take the item down, you get an email that says, "We're so sorry. Let's talk about what we can do." And with the Google Books project that Michigan manages, they have 20 million books, and they get about 400 takedown requests per year out of 20 million books. And every year, typically between 10 and 20 are legitimate copyright claims, and then they just take it down. So we're using this process of apologizing instead of asking for permission of the wider legal world, and instead asking permission of the performers themselves, and asking, or their descendants or their agents in the rare case where the estate property has gone to somebody else. So that's where we're focusing on traditional folk music and folk singer-songwriters. And this is the Michael Cooney piece I wanted to play, where he defines his own definition.
What is a folk song then? Well, once upon a time, somebody was being interviewed by somebody else. And I've heard so many different stories of this, but the one I believe is that Big Bill Brunzi was being interviewed by Studs Terkel in Chicago on WFMT, and he sang a song, and Studs Terkel said, "Is that a folk song?" And Big Bill Brunzi said, "I never heard no horses sing it."
Yeah.
But that's a poor definition of folk music. Non-horse music. You know, that makes all music folk music. And in a sense, all music is folk music. But that begs the question, you can't define folk music that way. You have to define folk music as some kind of music that's different from some other kinds of music. And what's that? Well, my favorite one is kind of old and conservative. And I think a cheap way to say that is, if you know who wrote it, it's not a folk song.
Yes.
What is a folk song then?
Yeah.
Real blues woman who I think well of. She lives in the Washington house, and we all may have had her. I know you heard about her. Her name is Elizabeth Cotten. She's a real dear friend of mine. I just love to hear her play freight train. I never could play it like Miss Cotten, though. But I really like the song.
This is good. is a traditionalist
Freight train,
covering another tradition.
runs the fast.
Both of whom
Freight
recordings
train,
of,
freight
and both of whom we think we
runs
get
the
permission.
fast. Tell nobody
This is
who the train
So it's all.
don't know which way I'm gone. When I die.
That would be Rosalie Sorrells. I only have one more little slide here, and then we can open it up some more. Steve Newhouse playing.
You need to have one more slide before we chat with Susan, right?
They have a lot of Rosalie Sorrells. I included Rosalie in this because when she passed away, her two daughters, who inherited her material, donated it to Boise State University Library Special Collections. And when the deed of gift came in from the daughters, they transferred to the university the copyrights of Rosalie Sorrells. Her daughter said, "We've made enough money. We're not going to make any more money off of this old stuff. Give it to the university." So I've reached out to the special collections folks at Boise State and said, well, if there are terms in there that would allow someone else to use this material, can you give us permission? And they said, we'll send a copy of the deed of gift. Our lawyers will look over it, and it may be that we can get just sort of blanket permission from Boise State University to include all of the Rosalie
The
Sorrells.
song was by Utah Phillips.
Hmm?
The song was written by Utah, her friend.
Yes,
Yeah.
Utah Phillips. So she's covering yet someone else that we're seeking permission from. So this kind of tied up mix of folk community in the 70s and 80s, we're sort of going after the whole thing, one performer at a time.
It's great.
So I know there's going to be...
What is a folk song then?
Oh, yeah.
There.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So the permission process. This is where the data. This is exciting to me because this is the 90-10 rule. We have 1,140 performers represented on the tapes, and thanks to Dave Siglin's untiring work to listen to the digitized versions of the tape, he's identified the performers for us, and it adds up to 1,140 performers in individual performances or in groups. Of those, between 1969 and 2007. But here's the trick. 80 of those artists account for 68% of the performances that we have. This is a sort of 90-10 rule. And this, I'm showing 18 artists account, just these 18 alone count for 37% of the performances that we've recorded. What I've highlighted here are the ones where we've already received permission from the artist or their descendants to make their recordings available. So we have Michael Cooney, David Bromberg, Bob White, Pam Ostergren, Uncle Bonsai just yesterday. Andrew came by the booth, signed the form, so we can do that. Joe Hickerson, Norman Blake, Tom Paxton. We did a video interview of Tom. His quote is on the back of our little flyer. He said, "Yes, anything I did is good for you to release." Hetty West. We have 8 or 9, 7 stunning performances. And Dave reached out to track down her daughter, Ty West, and called her on the phone while we were having breakfast at Holidays. And a little breakfast place in Ann Arbor, reached her on the phone and asked her on the phone. She said, well, I'll think about it. And she thought about it for a couple weeks and said, yes, my mother would have wanted this to happen. And so she's... Ty, who still gets royalties from Hetty West's estate, said, this is what my mother would want, so this is what we're going to do. So
What was Ramblin' Jack's reaction? I noticed you didn't get permission. He's still around, obviously.
Well, we haven't reached him yet. We haven't asked him yet.
Oh, okay.
These are the people we want to ask.
Yeah.
There's 80 people
He's still around.
And if you know how to
anybody
get a
knows
hold of
where-
him, go to the booth in the thing
Yeah.
and give us a phone number. That would be awesome.
So this is my quick last
Yeah.
slide, which is, you can sign up for the mailing list. Soon, our website will have a an automatic sign up for releases. Listen to some of the recordings through the website, and as they come out, talk up the project. Help us find people. If you know of people who know of people, we're going to put the full list of performers up on the website so you can scroll down. There's a searchable database we're going to make available as well. So success, we think we'll have the largest online collection of 70s and 80s folk music that's online and available for free. The University of Michigan has agreed to accept liability. This is the benefit of donating to a big university and then going through the slog that Dave and I have gone through for 15 years to try to get this project to work. But at the end of the day, they take over the liability issue for you instead of someone else. Liberal takedown policy, apologize instead of ask for permission, and then success, if we can do something, then others can as well. So I want to play this. This is the segue to Sue Martinez.
Are you ready? Just give me the go. Oh, let's go! I made my way across the valleys, hills, and plains, across the fields all cut done. Once more to Saskatchewan, time to get back to motherland. Better a good run than a bad stand. Oh, I may never leave again. Oh.
What you're hearing right there, I'm Susan Martinez. I'm on this board. I was on the board of the ARC. I was a volunteer at the ARC. When the ARC moved into its second location, my now husband and I actually housed performers at our home along with the Siglins for several years. So hundreds of people stayed with us in the course of a few years. And what you're hearing is from a surprise folk festival the night before my wedding at the ARC. My husband and I got married at the ARC at a reception at the second ARC. And that is a clip of James Keelahan, Oscar Lopez, Claudia Schmidt, Peter Skrushko, Dean McGraw, Garner Rogers, Carrie Newcomer. I didn't know this until I arrived in town that Dave had secretly arranged a surprise folk festival for me the night before. So I'm very lucky to be able to say that is actually in the archives as well. So part of what was happening at the time that I came in was the early 80s, and there were a lot of things that were happening nationally and locally. You mentioned the change in just the culture in Ann Arbor, absolutely. I felt that very strongly as well. And Dave mentioned we had the good fortune to have a nationally known fundraiser fall in love with folk music at that time. And on sort of the country scale, there were programs like Prairie Home Companion and Folk Sampler and Thistle and Shamrock that were going national. And so that was really adding this buoyancy, this visibility to singer-songwriters. And the nature of singer-songwriters was starting to change. It wasn't so much protest music, it was politically conscious, but a little more introspective. But one of the things that I got a front row seat for was seeing the life of these musicians on the road, and I got to really appreciate it. And actually, I became involved with music professionally and did management and publicity for many years because I saw that when artists were on the road, if they had a new album out with a label, they got attention for about 4 weeks, and then the label had to keep its attention on whatever was coming out next. And these people were on the road, 200, 250 days a year. This is their living. And I realized I could help make a difference by not only publicizing the artists that were coming through Ann Arbor, but touring nationally and internationally. So that's how I became involved. When we moved into the second ARC location, I remember Linda saying, there's no music in the walls here. And having also attended shows and volunteered at the first location, I could feel that. I could feel that, you know, there were decades of musicians, you know, the vibe in there was palpable. And going into a fresh new space that I think had been a billiard spot or something before that, you know, we didn't have that, but that changed very quickly. Partly because we could have larger audiences, we had more seating, we could have large audiences, so people that were coming to hear Dave Van Ronk or Tom Paxton, we could get many more people in the room to hear and appreciate those shows, and the audience was bigger, and we really developed a more sustainable economic business plan, I guess. Later. But one of the things that I hear when I listen, and it's been a joy for me to be able to go through these archives, is I hear what the artists were saying to me in my living room as they were staying with me. They were saying, like, when we see that we're coming to the Ark, like they're so excited. It was a very special place for musicians on the road. They were treated like family. It was home. And I hear that in the performances. And as I've heard many artists play in other areas, other venues, I can hear that difference too. And so that's just something else that is a very special piece of the archives for me, is hearing how much it meant to them. And so as you're hearing them talking in the performances, you'll hear comments, you'll hear personal stories with Dave and Linda and Anya. It was a very, very personal, it still is a very personal experience, not only for the artists and for the audience. And it changed my idea of what community was. I used to think of community as the audience or the town that you're passing through. And it's also that community that's on the road, the musicians, that they're carrying the music from town to town and bringing those stories back again. That's an important part. So I just wanted to call those pieces out. I know we want to have a little time for questions. Do you want to play that Steve Goodman clip? This is Steve Goodman, and he's playing Dave's guitar.
I think this one's it.
It's a short clip.
Well, here's a song called Mr. Mud, Mr. Gold.
That's right.
Playing 5-card stud poker.
Steve had a cold.
Yesterday I went downtown and saw an old-time picture show. The hero got a pie in the face. He didn't like that and he stormed around the screen. But everybody else was laughing in that place. That's 'cause it ain't hard to get along with somebody else's troubles. They don't make you lose any sleep at night. Just as long as fade's out there busting somebody else's bubbles, everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright.
So Dave, tell us about that guitar.
When Bruce Phillips told me I had to hire Steve Goodman, I had never heard of him. And we used to ask performers who should play the arc. Not who could play the arc or who was good enough, but who should play the arc. And we got recommendations from performers, and that's who we hired as it grew. And so Steve came and he was playing Martin D28, and his Friday night show, I thought, he's okay. You know, it's pretty muddy guitar playing. It didn't impress me at all. And we were sitting up in our living room with Steve after the show. We lived on the second floor. And he said, do you mind if I play your guitar? I had a 1936 0028, which was phenomenal. And he started playing it, and it was just night and day. It was unbelievable. And he asked if he could play it the next night, and I said, sure. And every note just popped. And he immediately went out and bought a old 00 Martin, and he never played a dreadnought again. He was playing smaller guitars that were built for his style of guitar playing, and it was light years different.
So I know we're getting towards the end, but I want to just add to my thoughts on why these archives are so important. I've had a couple of discussions with friends over the course of this week already. We've been talking about just the arc of history. There's a lot to talk about with our current state of affairs. And culturally, that's also important. You know, if we want to understand the music that people are playing today, it really helps you to appreciate it more, to understand the roots of where it came from. And listening through these archives, I can hear that arc, whether it's Norman and Nancy Blake over the course of their career, or it's that their music being passed on and adopted and evolved by, you know, newgrass and string bands and other things that are happening. You know, some of the people that stayed with me were people like Nancy Griffith and Suzanne Vega, when she would tell me stories about how she was being chased by major labels and people were pulling up to her concerts in limos trying to get her to sign her record deal. This is before she had signed a record deal. First time Nancy Griffith stayed with me, she played the Folk Festival, which was a big fundraiser for the ARC, and she came back to do 2 shows at the ARC, and she came even though I think she was having a gallbladder attack or something. She came and she performed. She was very sick. I had just had all of my wisdom teeth out, so we sat in my living room, in our bathrooms, drinking tea, high on painkillers. And then when it was time for her to do her sound check, she got dressed and she went over there and she just gave one of the best shows. And then we came back and we got in our bathrooms and we just popped more painkillers to get through it. And we became just, you know, great friends ever since that experience. But it's those stories are part of what is some of the emotional content, but it's also the performances, because I got to see what was happening before and after those shows. But it's that music in the walls that Linda talked about and made me aware of as I was learning about music. So I just want to share that as part of the importance of this archives. Is you can really get lost in it, really study it. You can go to the library and you can sit down and listen to music, but you know, that's a long trip for most folks, and to be able to make it available digitally, you know, with folks' permission, is just an even greater gift to keep this music alive.
It's come a long way since Dave first started this, 2009, something like that you were saying, and now to this day, like, we have this great website going, Siglin Music Preservation Fund.org. I'm pretty sure it's .org. But anyways, they'll scan the QR code. Please, you can hear so many great stories from these folks, especially Dave. He will talk your ear off. He's got so many amazing stories. Go visit him at the booth, right? You're going to be hanging out at the booth, all 3 of you. There's obviously a lot of excitement about this in this board and this client of people, but if you want to know any more about it, please just get in touch. Is there any burning questions out there that can't be? I knew you were going to raise your hand, Steve. Yes, go.
Okay, for preservation, the original sources, the tapes, whatever, they're still there, right?
Yes, they're at the University of Michigan in one of their archives, and there's a commitment to permanently keep the original sources.
Archival storage.
Yes.
Yep.
And the digital piece we did to international standards, the IASA audio digitization standards. So we've done what is called in the field full information capture off the tapes.
Yeah.
So the preservation piece of it is done, I think, right?
Yes.
The music has now been preserved. Now it's about getting it out there to the public. And thank you all so much. My job as moderator was just to stay out of the way. These 3 have a lot of great stuff to share. So it's Paul Conway on the end, Dave Siglin in the middle, and Susie Martinez. Thank you all for that. We'll leave you with a little clip.
When we moved into the 3rd arc, Maura O'Connell performed it. This is her thank you.
Thank you. Well, I can't tell you how delighted I am to be here tonight. Well, I can. I'm delighted to be here tonight. So much so, because this club is probably my favorite club in the whole world. And you audience, all the years that I've been coming here, has been my favorite, and I just enjoy the heck out of it.
Okay, thank you.
No?
Thank you.